President Trump's global trade tariffs have been temporarily delayed. In a ruling last week, the U.S. Court of International Trade said an emergency law invoked by the White House did not give the president unilateral authority to impose tariffs. So what happens now? To take a closer look at the issue, we welcome Stephen Montoya, partner at Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so what does this ruling mean?
It means that Trump is in for a long fight with his tariffs. The court, the International Trade Court, declared the tariffs unlawful on Wednesday of last week for a variety of reasons. First of all, it said that the law, if construed the way or interpreted the way the Trump administration was interpreting it, was too broad and delegated too much authority, an unconstitutional amount of authority to the president. Remember, under the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, the power to tax, tariff is a tax, belongs to Congress and Congress alone, and the president cannot unilaterally create taxes in the form of tariffs on anyone unless a statute passed by Congress specifies the nature and the time and the amount of the particular tariff based upon a specific reason. Trump used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to unilaterally impose tariffs upon countries all over the world, some that did not even trade with us. And he basically assumed unilateral control over imposing tariffs, and the court said that that was unlawful, and if understood in one perspective, if not declared contrary to the statute, would actually be unconstitutional.
The administration immediately appealed. A White House spokesperson said U.S. trade deficits with other countries constituted, quote, a national emergency that has decimated American communities, left our workers behind, and weakened our defense industrial base. Facts that the Trump administration says did not dispute.
That's not true. The court did specifically address that. I have the opinion right here. And here's what the court said to that. Another law called the Trade Act of 1974 specifically deals with unfair trade imbalances and creates a regime for handling those. And the court said if the president wanted to deal with trade imbalances, that the president had to do so under the 1974 law, which prescribes a specific procedural regime and time limits. The regime is you can only raise a tariff 15%, and you can only do it for 150 days. So for trade imbalances, the 1974 law was applicable rather than the emergency law of 1977.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm
Sure.
not the lawyer, and the tariffs issue is difficult to follow day by day. But my understanding is there are still tariffs on vehicles, steel. Is that correct? And if so, why?
Well, because there is another trade law that authorizes the president to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum, both in their raw form and in their manufactured form, if it's undermining the American steel and aluminum industry, rather in their raw form, like U.S. Steel, or, for example, General Motors. And that's what the president has done. And this decision doesn't impact those.
There are other court cases involving tariffs. What's the status?
Well, in the status of one important one out of the District of Columbia concluded with the trade court that the across-the-board tariffs were unconstitutional and unlawful.
So the president's spokesperson, the Commerce Secretary, I believe it was, said yesterday, tariffs aren't going away, president's going to win this. How is this going to end up? Is this just going to have to be decided with the Supreme Court or what?
I think it is, and I think he's going to lose it, and I'll tell you why. The conservative wing of the Republican Party, the free trade wing of the Republican Party brought this lawsuit. And the Democrats or the liberals joined the lawsuit. So now the president is confronting the conservatives and the liberals and some of the most conservative individuals you can imagine that really align themselves with the conservative justices on the Supreme Court. For example, Justice Thomas, Justice Alito. This is that same group of lawyers, that same group of individuals that are pushing to overturn this law. Republicans have traditionally disdained and opposed tariffs. So, and the liberals don't like them either. So I think, and plus, I don't think the president has this broad of power. The president has basically taken unto himself the power to impose tariffs across the board for any reason, at any amount, for any length of time. And the president does not have that power under law. I think he's going to lose. But there are plenty of other laws that he can lawfully use that they're already starting to threaten to use. So I do agree there are going to continue to be tariffs, just not this broad.
It sounds like this is a topic we will be discussing again and again. Stephen Montoya, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.